Did you just get ghosted by an avoidant? If yes, know that the most important thing right now is that you don't frantically try to get them to respond. Avoidants do ghost. And yes, it's not a nice thing someone can do to a person, but it's not the end of the world either. For the most part, they do respond sooner rather than later, and it's not something you need to worry about that much. Hi, guys. I'm Carolina. I used to date an avoidant, and he did used to ghost me, but I didn't even realize that he was doing it for the longest time because we were stuck in the anxious avoidant trap back in 2013. And back then, ghosting wasn't even a term yet. So when he didn't respond to me, I didn't know he ghosted me. I just thought, oh, that's a bit rude, but whatever. And I just went about my day. Nowadays, we have all this awareness of avoidance, attachment styles, ghosting. We have all this vocabulary, and it can be both a curse and a blessing. It is good to know where you're at. It is good to understand these things, but at the same time, it can make you blow things out of proportion. So, when it comes to ghosting, there's a spectrum, and it can be something very small, very harmless, a bit of a mean thing someone can do, but not like it's a bit rude, right? But it also varies in toxicity. In this video, I will explain everything you need to know about ghosting, why avoidants do it, when they do it, and what to do about it. So, first off, I will give you guys 5 situations or 5 categories of ghosting, starting with the most harmless one and then moving further down in the spectrum towards more and more toxic ones where it is something more serious, where it is a signal that something's wrong with this person that you're dating or with your relationship. We'll talk about how you can know which of these case scenarios you're in, because it's not so easy to judge by yourself, and also what to do in each one of these 5 categories. So, the most common reason why and when avoidance ghosts you, and this is the most harmless one, the one you definitely don't need to worry about, is when they need space. Often simply because they're in a bad mood and they just don't want to talk to anyone, and that sadly includes you. This can happen after a stressful day at work, after spending time with family or certain friends. Things like this can be stress inducing, they can make someone tense, and avoidants, when they're tense, they do tend to self isolate. A similar, slightly more serious situation in which avoidance ghosts you is when you're in a bad mood and they decide it's time to give you space. So, when they're giving you space, this is again a very harmless type of situation, and it might be counterintuitive, but it's how a lot of people react when they sense someone else is tense or stressed or something and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to help. They're going to distance themselves. They're going to give you space. The third reason why avoidance ghosts you, and here we're moving further down the toxicity scale, like this one is a bit meaner than the previous 2 ones, is to make a point, to take a jab at you. And in particular, when you've ignored something they said. So, for example, if they said something that didn't suit you or upset you, and you kind of just wanted to brush it off and pretend like they didn't say it, something like, I need space, or I don't know if we're good for each other, something that made you feel anxious. So you kind of just wanted to make it go away. But it is a concern they're having, and you brushing it off made them feel like you just ignored it. They'll not respond to your next message to make a point, to make sure that the thing they said before stands. It's to underline their position. The fourth situations when avoidance ghosts you is again one step further down in seriousness. This is where you have a bit more of a conflict. Avoidance can ghost when they want you to see things their way. It is, again, a mean thing to do. When you disagree about something, an avoidant might resort to silent treatment simply to pressure you into backing down. So, for example, if you're pushing towards moving in together and he or she is not ready, they might give you silent treatment to get you to back off, to get you to just give in and give them what they're wanting. Yeah, so you can see how it's not the nicest thing to do. And here is where we're moving into this more toxic territory. And here I'm going to talk about the fifth situation when avoidance ghosts you, which is the definitely most toxic one. Sometimes it's in response to your own toxic behavior. I will talk about it later in this video. Sometimes it's completely uncalled for. Avoidance will ghost you when they want to punish you. And that is a delivery I've been waiting for. So see you guys in a moment. For all of you guys who have been watching our videos, you must be wondering where we're at. We're in the Austrian Alps. We're helping my parents with the renovation here. And normally you can see a bit of a beautiful view, but yeah, normally we have a wonderful view here, but it's very cloudy today. If it clears out, I'll make another video. Sorry for the interruption. Let's get back to the hurtful topic of avoidance ghosting you to punish you. When a relationship conflict escalates, some avoidants do want to punish you by cutting you off. And this is where I'm talking about this super scary emotional discard. I know a lot of you guys are afraid of. This is something I used to be terrified of too. Know that this is something on a rarer side, and in most cases, it only happens when a relationship conflict escalates a lot. Some avoidants do it out of the blue for no big reason, but it's only very few ones. It's the most extreme ones and the most toxic ones, I would say. Here are these 5 typical situations of why and when avoidant ghost you. So, how do you know which one of these you fall into? I guess some of you already have an idea, but it is kind of hard to know for sure. And what I see with people is that the ones in the harmless of situations, the ones in the first category, tend to be the ones that think they're in the fifth, that they're being emotionally discarded. And that's why they panic and that's why they overtext. And then the ones that are getting discarded tend to play it down and feel like it's not so serious, which often only escalates the whole problem. So, in order to know for sure which one of these 5 scenarios you're currently going through, we're going to go through them one by one and then talk about what to do in each one of these cases, starting with the most serious one. Because that's the one we're all freaking out about, right? That's the one we definitely don't want to be in. So when an avoidant wants to punish you by cutting you off, when they want to do this scary emotional discard, they usually don't just ghost you. 9 out of 10 times, they will also block you. They might unfollow you, delete your phone number, all these hurtful, harsh things. If this is you, if you did get blocked, if you did get deleted, if you did get discarded, you need to recognize this is an unhealthy situation, and escalating it will only make it more unhealthy. So what can you do? Any further chasing, any further demand of a response or demand that they care will only make them block you further and will only make them pull away more. In some ways, you've lost, and you need to accept that you've lost and that there is no coming back from it, or that you can't do anything to save the situation. If you're blocked, if you're unfollowed, you have to think about what happened beforehand. Were you chasing this person? Did you guys have a conflict? Were you overriding boundaries? Normal people don't block others for no reason. They don't discard you unless they feel threatened, unless they feel scared that you're going to do or say things that will hurt them. Think about what's been going on in your relationship in the last couple of weeks and be honest with yourself. Did you do something that hurt your avoidant partner? If so, that's why they reacted this way. Is it a good reaction? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they were trying to set boundaries with you before and you just ignored them, and that's why you're blocked. Maybe it's an overreaction. Avoidants are just human. They're not perfect, just like you're not perfect. Generally speaking, if this is the situation you're in, if you got emotionally discarded, if you got blocked, there's nothing you can do but wait until they unblock you. And when they unblock you, that's a signal, hey, I'm ready to talk. And that's when you can come in and apologize. In some cases, it makes sense to write an apology acknowledgement letter or an acknowledgement email. This is something we help our coaching clients do. However, it's a tricky one. If it's something you try doing on your own accord, you might end up doing more harm than good. People tend to write love letters instead of acknowledgement apology letters. And when you're loving someone who just blocked you, to them, it just feels like further overriding of their boundaries. And to you, it will feel just like another rejection. So accept your fate and just wait. But here I want to also talk about some cases where avoidants block or discard without a reason. And it does happen. Some do this. There are avoidants out there who will remove you from their life, both men and women, on a whim. And of course, if that's you, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Know that it's not your fault. They have some major issues and that you're better off moving on from a person like this, because a person who will walk away, who will drop you over nothing, is not someone you can build a life with. It's not someone you want to bind yourself to, because they will only hurt you. All right. So that was the most toxic case scenario you might be going through. Most of you guys will not fall into this category. So if you're not blocked, if you're not deleted from social media, chances are you didn't get discarded. So let's move on to the situation 4. Maybe your avoidant is ghosting you to make you see things their way. How do you know this is the case? Well, did you guys have a fight? Did you disagree about something? Something like future plans? Maybe you were pushing for commitment and your avoidant partner kept on saying they're not ready. Or maybe you wanted to plan a trip and they wanted to prioritize work. Or maybe you wanted to push them to introduce you to their family and he or she is so afraid of her or his parent, they don't want to do that. If any of these scenarios or anything like this sounds familiar, if that's you, what do you do? First off, you need to realize this is a standoff. You're both at your limit. You pushed for something and they were like, no. And now they're giving you silent treatment. So it's not an emotional discard, it's a negotiation tactic. And basically, the only way you can get out of this ghosting situation, if this is the case, if you disagreed about something and your avoidant is giving you silent treatment to make you see things their way, you need to demonstrate to them that you are willing to see things their way. That is the only thing that will get them out of this stubborn ghosting mode. So if you disagreed about commitment, if you disagreed about the timeline of your relationship, you need to be the one who says, look, I'm sorry I pushed. I understand you're not ready. Maybe I got a bit anxious. Maybe I got a bit insecure. And it makes sense you're upset about that. And if it's about the other things like a trip or introducing you to friends and family, you have to demonstrate you're willing to come their way. You're willing to compromise on what you want. Otherwise, you can also just wait it out and see if they come your way. But no, you're not really getting ghosted. It's a standoff and you're receiving silent treatment. That's what this is about. Let's move on to the next lighter situation. Point number 3, when an avoidant ghosts you, to make a point. It's similar to the previous one, the silent treatment to punish you for disagreeing with them. But maybe you guys didn't have any major disagreement, no major fight, nothing. If that's the case, then perhaps you're in this third category. Perhaps your avoidant ghosted you to make a point because you ignored something they said. Maybe they said something that was uncomfortable, something like, I need space, or I think we want different things. I'm having second thoughts about us. Hearing your partner say something like this to you is not nice. It's not easy. My then avoidant boyfriend did say all these things to me, and I also had a hard time reacting. And my instinct would also be to just brush it off and pretend like he didn't say it. And then he would just become less responsive. He would be a bit broody and would ghost me because he felt rejected. When people say things like this, when they say, I need space or I'm having doubts about our relationship, they are trying to communicate with you. They're trying to tell you something. And when you don't want to hear it, they feel rejected. So, what do you do if this is you? What do you do if you're avoidant and you didn't have any major conflict, but you did have this light disagreement where they said something uncomfortable and then you didn't want to hear it? The only way to get them to become responsive again, really, is to acknowledge the thing that they said, this thing that is so hard to hear. So if your avoidant said, I need space, you might want to text them something like, hey, I hear you about the space thing. Things were a bit intense between us lately, and it is good that we have our separate lives for now. I also miss being my own person. Again, this is about making peace. It's about finding your way back to each other. That's what relationships are all about. They're about connecting. They're about building bridges. If you're avoiding ghosted you to make a point, you have to acknowledge the point that they're trying to make. That's the only way to get unghosted. I mean, you can also just wait it out and again do the standoff thing and see if they back down. But avoidants do tend to be stubborn, and it is normal to come each other's way in a relationship. It's a part of what makes a relationship work. And I'm sure your partner will be more willing to come your way if you come their way. I mean, ideally. And if not, that's material for a whole other video. So, what if you didn't even have a conversation? What if they didn't even say anything like this? If they didn't say, I need space, or I have doubts about us, or maybe we want different things. They just became unresponsive. Well, then that's good news because it means your situation is even less consequential. It's possible that they're just giving you space because maybe you were in a bad mood last time you two talked. A lot of us don't know how to deal with emotions. So when our partner gets emotional, we tend to be overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, some people start chasing, but avoidants start withdrawing. They bunker themselves in and they're like, I'm going to give you space so that you get over your feelings and then come back to me when you're no longer anxious or when you're no longer nervous or when you're no longer pissy or whatever. Come back to me when you're feeling better, when you're recovered from this, when you're no longer stressed or anxious or annoyed, and then we can have fun together. If this is the case, yes, you are being emotionally abandoned a bit. Realistically speaking, it is how most people will respond, especially most people with avoidant attachment. If you yourself are anxious, you might feel offended by this and feel like, I would never respond this way. I would be caring. But know that anxious people have their flaws too, and that the fixer type who's so quick to jump in and fix things for someone else can also end up making this other person feel discarded or controlled. Nobody's perfect. Your avoidance not perfect. But if you can think back to your last interaction and you were a bit tense or you were a bit anxious or maybe you overtexted a little bit and now they haven't responded or now they haven't initiated, just give it 3 to 5 days and then reach out as though nothing happened because that's the reality. Nothing happened. This kind of exchange happened between Gabriel and me, I don't know, a million times probably. And sometimes avoidants do then ask about this thing you were rambling about before, or they do inquire. Sometimes they don't. And you might need to teach your partner how to be more caring or how to deal with your emotions. But again, that's material for a whole other video. But if this is you, if you got ghosted because your avoidant partner is simply giving you space, know that you can just jump right back into where you were at before. Okay, but maybe you weren't even anxious. Maybe you didn't even ramble. Maybe you didn't even double text and still you got ghosted. What the hell? Um, well, then that's really good news. It means you're in this first category. Your avoidance ghosting you because they need space. And that's a very simple one. If they need space, you just have to give them space. And yes, they will not be available today. They might not be available tomorrow. Usually, avoidants need 3 to 7 days and then they get back to you. And they might even get back to you on the same day, but write a very short answer. Let's say you send a kind good morning message and they responded in the evening with, "Hey, I've been very busy today." Don't freak out. Leave them be. Maybe something happened. Maybe they talked to someone. Maybe it's that time of the month. Maybe he or she watched a movie that made them depressed. When it comes to this kind of ghosting, if you don't make it a big deal, it's not going to become a big deal. Gabriel and I went through this countless times. I would write him something and he would respond 5 hours later. And it was enough for me to read the message as I don't want to talk right now and not talk to him. And that was the end of it. As you can see, when it comes to ghosting, it's all about building this bridge. It's all about making the avoidant feel that you understand what's going on and you can respond accordingly. And I know that it's not easy. It's not easy to know which exact situation you're in. It's also hard not to freak out sometimes, but that's where you need to take responsibility for your own attachment issues, for your own anxiety, and not try to flood your partner with your feelings. That is also something I needed to learn, by the way. So if you're struggling with this, let me help you snap out of the anxious mode in a one-on-one coaching call. Here, I can listen to all your fears, all your doubts, all your worst case scenarios, and debunk them so that they lose their hold over you and so that you can relax and not make them come true. Because that's what it is with anxious attachment. We anxious people are so afraid of being discarded. We create these situations, we blow things out of proportion, we escalate conflicts. And that's where you can do something to stop it. Maybe you can't get your avoidant to respond as fast as you wish from one day on to the next. But the better you learn to understand them, the better you learn to read their behavior, the less they'll ghost you. And that's what happened between Gabriel and me. We figured it out. I learned how to respond to him. I learned what he needed. We learned to communicate. And then he stopped ghosting me because he no longer needed to give me silent treatment. He could just tell me when he's upset and I'd be able to listen. Or he could tell me when he was having a bad day and could trust to be vulnerable with me. I hope you now have more clarity on what to do when an avoidant ghosts you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if you're looking for more attachment style advice, subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.